Hello and welcome to another episode of Brew Time with me, Vincent Hung. Now, in today's episode, I want to take you into the stadium with me for a football game. So let's get going. So the story begins a few months ago where a friend of mine and myself, we went to a Manchester United game. So we were both very excited. This was a surprise from his girlfriend to him for his birthday. So we were both very excited about the game and we went in, sat in our seats in anticipation of the start of the match. And at the start of the match, we all stood up to clap the players in, which was great. We were again very excited. But then kickoff happened and there were two people up ahead, these two people, that would not sit down during the game. And what happened was, because of these two people standing up, this caused a chain reaction of the people behind them having to stand up to be able to see the pitch. And then because of that, the row behind also had to stand up to be able to see the pitch. As you can see in this illustration, because of one or two people standing up ahead, the rest of the stand going backwards then had to stand up to see the pitch. Now this was quite frustrating and it was also quite difficult because there was a man behind who obviously was a little bit older than us who was stumbling during the first half of the game because he had to stand up. So this was a classic example of how the actions of the fair few causes a chain reaction which is detrimental to hundreds of other people. So this got me thinking, this actually happens in real life as well, not only at a football game. So for instance, if you think of a road traffic accident where maybe two people have collided and they got out of the car to argue. And because they haven't moved their vehicles, it causes the traffic jams for both sides. Now this is another example of selfish actions of a couple of people causing a negative chain reaction for everyone else who's behind them. Also, if you maybe think on a larger scale as well, if you think of members of parliament and government, they may make changes to the rules or policies that will have a detrimental impact on the rest of society. So why am I sharing this story with you? Well, I think the second half of the game and the second lesson I'm about to share with you is where this really comes alive. So during the interval between the first and the second half, what I did was I went down to the stewards and I told them, look, there are two people who are standing up, which is causing the whole stand to have to stand up for the game. And there was a man behind me who obviously couldn't deal with that, he was stumbling. So I tried to get them to tell the people in front to sit down when the match started. So the steward said, look, they'll try their best, and they did try their best, but the two men still would not sit down. I also tried to change this myself because when they were coming back to their seats, I told them, look, can you sit down for the second half? Because there are a lot of people behind having to stand up because of them. And they just sniggered and gave a remark and was obviously very selfish and didn't care. So I tried to change the situation and obviously I failed. But this isn't the end of the story because something positive did come out of it. What happened during the second half was the steward called me down from the stand. So I went down to see them and they said, look, there are two seats up in front where you can sit down, would you like to move there? And obviously me and my friend said, well, yes we do. We're getting better seats and we don't have to stand up. So I called my friend down from the stand and what we did was we sat in those new seats and enjoyed the rest of the game sitting down. So what's the second moral of the story? Well, I think the second moral of the story here is if there's something that is obviously out of your control, so the two people standing up, rather than complaining about it, I tried to change the situation. My actions removed us from the situation and put us in a position where we can enjoy the game sitting down as happy bunnies. There are often situations that you find yourself in that you cannot control. This could be caused by a few people or it could be caused by a lot of people. But if there's a situation that you're in that you don't particularly like or is detrimental to yourself, I think what you need to do is find ways to go about that and either try and change that situation or try and get yourself out of that situation. And if you worry about things that you cannot control, you're just going to create more stress for yourself. Whereas if you channel that energy to think of situations or think of solutions that you can control, That will then get you further towards your positive outcome, and also it will help your personal well-being because you won't be stressed about things you cannot control. So if you think back to a situation where you felt yourself stressed, for instance, maybe you're sat in a traffic jam and you're late somewhere and you feel that anxiety and that stress. But the traffic isn't going to move the more anxious or the more stressed you are. But what you can do is try and find an alternative, maybe an alternative route. And when you do, if you take that route, that will then help alleviate your stress. So what you've done is you've changed something that you can control rather than stress about something that you can't.